Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day. And check out our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. And check out our Altar Sleeve. Support the show by using the code MAGICMICS at checkout for 5% off anything in the store. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, MTG Nerd Girl.
Hey guys, welcome back.
Reuben Bresler.
Hi, good afternoon.
With that
I look slightly less slovenly, yes.
I would definitely say less slovenly, dude.
I'm cosplaying
You are a
as
man
the
about
unluckiest
town.
planeswalker from every curse in the Commander expansion.
Very nice, very nice. Well, we begin with our choice of the top comment from last week in the segment we call Honorable Mention, where Reuben will tell us who was the most eloquent in letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our top 10 romantic cards. Reuben?
Well, I might be the unluckiest, but Komodo, our old friend Komodo from the Discord, is our lucky winner this week for his comment, or their comment. I think it's him. As Nerd Girl said during the top 10, true love doesn't necessarily have to be with two people, but it can be with a person and their lovable beast. And with that, my honorable mention has to be Affectionate Indrik. The Indrik in the picture just oozes love for everyone, from the cats at their feet to the man they're gently nuzzling with their face. Nothing says I love you quite like an excitable animal that doesn't know its own strength and size.
Oh boy, Affectionate Indrik was a wonderful creature that showed up in Guilds of Ravnica. It's a green and 5 generic mana for a 4/4 uncommon beast. And when it enters the battlefield, you may have it fight target creature you don't control. But of course, its flavor text says the problem isn't the Indrik's enthusiasm, it's Ravnica's lack of guardrails.
Accidentally shoving things off of the sidewalks. Just really excellent flavor for a creature that fights, right? Fighting that's a violent word. That is an aggressive word. And to flavor it as an animal accidentally bumping you off of a high place is very clever.
I remember that art, and I usually recognize cards by the art and not by the name, and that was definitely one that stood out to me. And as soon as I read it, even though it's like kind of a draft common, I knew exactly what they meant. And I was actually reading the comments before this show like a day or two ago, and I saw that comment and I loved it.
Yep, it's one of those, it's a love tap.
Yeah.
Off the side of a building.
Right.
Bye. Well, thank you very much to Komodo for being part of the show. Contact us on social media, preferably Twitter DMs. For your prize. Right. Thanks again to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this giveaway, and stay tuned for our top 10 list this week, and maybe you can win next week's free gift certificate, because it's time to talk about our top 10 multicolor cards on Arena. I mean, well, me and Nerd Girl are going to talk for the first couple.
Yeah.
Then Reuben will show up.
I'll show up. It's not like I'm completely shut out of the show. I just have 4 hires.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Nerd Girl, what's your number 10?
All right, my number 10 is a card. It isn't actually seeing a ton of play right now, but it was very good in Standard. It was very good in Historic until a recent change, and I expect to see it again. It's also one of my best friend's favorite cards, and that's going to be YORION Sky Nomad.
Oh boy.
This is a 5 mana, 3 colorless, and a Azorius hybrid. For a legendary creature, Bird Serpent. It is a 4/5, and it's a companion, meaning it starts outside of your hand. You may pay 3 to buy the card. It has flying. When YORION enters the battlefield, exile any number of other non-land permanents you own and control, and then return those to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. This was super relevant in Standard and was very, very busted recently in Historic until the Inquisitor Captain took a nerf. But I expect we will be seeing the Sky Noodle again very, very soon in Eternal formats.
This card, the whole companion mechanic.
The whole mechanic is bad, but of the 10 companions, YORION had the most success in Standard, as far as I remember.
Standard, yes. Some of the other ones
80 is the new 60, as they used to say. Very good in control. And also, based on the companion wording or rule switch, not even wording, of not just casting it from exile, but having to pay 3 mana to buy it and put it into your hand, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
YORION's the one that kind of succeeded continuing after that nerf.
Yeah,
Yes.
even with the nerf of paying 3 generic mana, they literally had to change the mechanic. They had to rework a mechanic after it left the building.
Yeah.
I mean, that alone is unprecedented. These cards are just like going to be this weird constant forever. Like, I don't know if I ever want to see another companion. They were just so, like, it's one of those things where, like, if it's good, it's everywhere. And you just could not run into the, not run into the YORION decks over and over again.
Well, I mean, also every standard deck was a companion deck until they fixed it.
Oh my God.
That was such a problem.
Oh man. If you had been there in those first couple of weeks and it was just like somebody would look, at one point I posted a deck list and Zvi Moshwitz was like, where's your companion? I'm like, oh, right. I have to, that's how standard works now is you have free cards that they gave you and you'd be an idiot not to run one. So what a world. Well, let me tell you, my number 10 here, this is a new card, but it is one of my favorite new cards. And I just have a feeling it's going to be around for a very long time. The power level feels super high on Oni Cult Anvil. Oni Cult Anvil is a red and a black for an uncommon artifact. It just showed up in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, but I swear it's super duper good. Whenever one or more artifacts you control leave the battlefield, let's note that, not dies, just leave the battlefield, any artifact, creature or not, during your turn. You make a 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn, and you tap and sacrifice an artifact. It deals 1 damage to each opponent, and you gain 1 life. And this sucker is like Cat Oven, bigger, longer, and uncut, and it's there to crush, and it runs right alongside. You can run both of these things if you want to in Historic, but I have played this deck in Standard. I've drafted with this stupid thing. Like, Oni Cult Anvil, like, just ends games in a whole variety of ways, and I love it.
Yeah, this is a card that it's a little interesting and limited as well, because there's like one particular deck that wants to see this. I haven't gotten a chance to play with it in Historic or Standard yet, but I'm excited to see what this card does, and I'm hoping it doesn't break anything like Cat Oven.
Typically one of the signpost multicolor uncommons. So the way that Magic sets have been happening is that they will give you a signpost uncommon. What I mean by that is that the uncommon will be 2 colors and it'll show you the roadmap of what your deck should be doing in a given format. And usually each set has 1 signpost uncommon of like, oh, that's what this deck is. In our current format, Kamigawa, the red-black deck is an artifact-centric, artifact sacrifice-centric deck. Typically, one of those signpost uncommons, they accidentally the standard format with. Something like Reflector Mage comes to mind, and in this case, it's going to be the Anvil. It is everything you want in a Blood Artist and in a Sacrifice outlet. Like, it does both things, and oh, by the way, it replaces itself. Like, it gives you more constructs with which to do things. You don't need a cat and an oven. This is kind of both at the same time. And so I would be shocked if this weren't a player in Standard, and would not be shocked if this were a player in older formats.
I have played it in older formats, and the fact that you have 2 of them out and they both trigger to make a free 1/1, and then you have 2 of them out, which means you can sack, to drain 2 every turn till they're dead. Like, it's remarkable. And let me tell you, it's sweet. Let's move on here to number 9, one of my hires. So Nerd Girl, do you have a number 9?
I certainly do.
Oh, boy.
All right. So my number 9 is a card that is seeing some pretty sweet play on Arena for Historic, and has really changed up a deck that it fits in. The archetype that we've typically seen this in is like 3 colors. And this actually kind of brings it down to 2 colors, which I thought made it, a powerful enough card to make our list. And that is the Ravenous Squirrel. It's also darn cute. A 1/1 for 1 hybrid mana. It's a black or green. It is a creature type squirrel. It says whenever you sacrifice an artifact or creature, put a +1/+1 counter on Ravenous Squirrel. And then for 3 mana, colorless black and green, you can sacrifice an artifact or creature, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So this gives a ton of value with its own sack outlet, but also the important thing to note is that it kind of allows the sacrifice deck to move away from red, getting rid of Corvold and Mayhem Devils, but it still gives you this big finisher that Corvold used to do, but this one can be played earlier and be far more aggressive. And it actually gets 2 counters for 1 cycle of the cat oven, which is just kind of nuts and can close out a game super fast.
Oof. Yeah, that's a lot. So yeah, now I'm just building my anvil deck, just rebuilding it right now in the top 10. I'm enjoying that.
Basically. Like all of these cards are super powerful. I'm excited that squirrels are competitive. And when Modern Masters had a bunch of like powerful squirrels, I was very pleased.
They had to tone it down.
Not to mention that they had to ban Chatterstorm.
Of course they did.
Ravenous Squirrel in particular, I mean, you read it and you just know it's powerful. Like there's nothing, you don't really have to do anything. Like you don't have to bend over backwards that much. All you have to do is be like, oh, these other cards say sacrifice on them. I have a 5/5 for 1 mana in my deck. It's very much like Death Shadow in that way.
It sneaks up on you, which is a terrific quality in a squirrel even. Let's move on here to number 8. Reuben, what's number 8?
Hey, I'm part of the show.
Hey.
My number 8 was is banned in Historic and was a problem. Just a problem in Standard, and has kind of always been a problem. But I think that we kind of give a pass to Winota, Joiner of Forces, in a lot of ways, because even though it's powerful, it is also just a 4/4 for 4 in red and white. So we kind of will root for Winota, even though she's way too good. Winota, Joiner of Forces is 2 generic red-white for a legendary creature human warrior. She is a 4/4. Whenever a non-human creature you control attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a human creature card from among them onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. It gains indestructible until the end of the turn. Put the rest of the cards on the bottom of your library in a random order. That is too many words.
That's a lot of words.
That's too good. That's too many words.
It's too many words, but I will say Winona is not... It is the centerpiece of my favorite decks, my favorite named deck. Pawblade.
Yes.
It's the cutest thing ever. You just put all the puppies.
Look, there were multiple cards. Wizards decided to make a few cards. 1 that stole permanents, and that was Agent of Treachery. And then 2, Angras Marauders, which was another human, a giant human, which basically gave everything double what was it, kind of
doubled your damage.
Yeah, double the damage and everything. I'm trying to think, what was that stupid enchantment? Furnace of Wrath, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Furnace of Wrath, everything. So between those 2 cards, it kind of broke everything there for a minute. And it's one of those cards that if when you read them and it says you can look at the top 6 or top 7 or more.
It's a lot. Yeah.
It's usually large enough. If it's anything over 4 cards, I'm usually kind of concerned. Like in terms of searching for things or finding things. Once it goes deep enough, like Collected Company, you're like, whoa, you look at how many cards? And there you go.
I mean, even if you're not putting a 7 mana human into play, you're still getting free value. Much less a Blade Historian, which gives all of your attacking creatures double strike. That's fine. And that's a 4 mana 2/3. Like that's good. Even if you're just getting a 2/2 for 2, it's still coming in tapped and attacking and indestructible until the end of the turn. That's still insane.
You can still get copies of Winota herself and just replace herself, but now as tapped and attacking, and indestructible, by the way. So it's just, it's very, very strong. Nerd what's number 8?
All right. I do indeed have a number 8. I will be taking a break for 7. Oh, no. So my number 8 is a card that deserves a place on our top 10 lists because it's good in control, it's good in aggro, it's good in everything, and it's just a card that everybody loves. This is not something maybe loves is harsh, but it's something everybody knows of. It's kind of a staple, and that's going to be Lightning Helix.
Ooh.
This red and white instant says Lightning Helix deals 3 damage to target creature or player, and you gain 3 life. This has always been a staple in Standard. It's a critical piece for Jeskai Control. I took it to a PT for Burn. This thing is all over the place, and it's definitely a very unique card that is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts.
Oh, it's wonderful. It was in the Strixhaven Mystical Archives. That was gorgeous. I mean, it's unique in Lightning Helix being a card that came out in 2005, if I'm correct here. Yeah, 2005, everybody. How many here listening were around then? But Lightning Helix, again, for 2 colors to do, the bolt and the gain life all together, for that still to be exciting in 2022 is honestly a kudos to the design team, right? Like, God knows they've been tempted to make better than Lightning Helix, but we have Lightning Helix.
Right. OMG Lightning Helix off the top at the Pro Tour, at Pro Tour Honolulu, Craig Jones in the semifinals. That's the ball game. That's the thing. That's the most famous Pro Tour moment ever and will never be topped. And a lot of people forget that was a semifinal, actually. And even just based on only that, Lightning Helix could make an appearance on the list.
My favorite bit about that little historic moment is Flores is arguing not to do what Craig Jones is doing. Yeah. Flores is like, he really should get rid of that creature. And, Randy Bueller sitting there going I think he should just hit him in the face.
Go face. Yeah.
They're like, he's only got one chance, and Flores is like, oh no, man.
Opponents at 7, char you end of turn. Let's see what's on the top. And now we have the greatest moment in Pro Tour commentary history.
It's wonderful. If you haven't seen it or watched it, you should check it out and Google it. So here for my number 8, this is a wonderful creature that has been pretty much fantastic ever since it showed up. It is a staple amongst the Commander players of the world these days. It is in every single one of, I'm pretty sure it's in every single one of the historic Brawl decks that have these 2 colors in them, because you just can't not love a hostage taker. For a black, blue, and 2 generic mana, it was one of the most thematic cards to come out of Ixalan. It is a rare 2/3 human pirate, and when it enters the battlefield, you exile target artifact or creature until Hostage Taker leaves the battlefield. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. So you get to, take them, and then you get to put them on your side if you spend the mana to take it. That's fantastic. You are the Hostage Taker.
Yeah. This, of course, also is famous because it was printed incorrectly. It should say another, although the printed versions could target itself, and then you would create an infinite loop.
Right. You can't, if you played on an empty battlefield or whatever with itself, you would technically, draw the game or whatever.
Right. I want that Magic Online promo in paper. That they're holding the dinosaur hostage.
Oh, man, it's so good.
Love it. And I don't think it's ever been printed in paper before, but that's what I want.
Nice.
Yeah, let's go. In the next master set or whatever, I'll take it. Give me that artwork, please. Thank you. All right, let's move on here to number 7. Nurgle, you said yours was higher. So, Reuben, what's number 7?
My number 7 is a terror, just an absolute monster in every format that it was ever legal in. And it is currently banned in Pioneer because it was so much of a terror. And in fact, it costs a different amount of mana in one of its formats because of how much of a terror it was. My number 7 is Teferi Time Raveler.
Oh boy.
Depending on the format in which you're playing, Teferi Time Raveler either enters the battlefield as a colorless white and a blue, or 2 colorless white and a blue. We'll go with the printed version.
Go with the printed version.
The printed version from War of the Spark is a rare legendary Planeswalker Teferi for 3 mana, enters with 4 loyalty. And it has the static ability. Each opponent can cast spells only at a time they could cast a sorcery. Vomit. It has a +1 that says until your next turn, you can cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. And its -3 is return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand. Draw a card.
It doesn't read as powerful as this card actually is. And I think that's why it snuck up on everybody.
I don't know. Anytime there's this much text, I'm always like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah.
It quickly, and I mean quickly, dominated all over Standard, and it was just annoying, and people were upset about it, and you saw it time and time and time again. And they did this get banned? I can't remember.
It's banned in Pioneer. I don't think it ever got banned in Standard, and it also got changed for Historic.
Right. It got changed to the Alchemy version of Historic, so they made it cost more, and they changed its first ability, so you can just not cast spells on your turn, and they can still cast spells whenever they want. Its original ability meant you couldn't have any combat tricks or whatever. It was a lot for 3 mana particularly. And it would just screw up any sort of momentum that you had, and Teferi would take over the game slowly thereafter. So yeah.
The fact that you could bounce maybe their one threat and then the next turn tick up when you had 4 mana in your white-blue control deck so that you could wrath at instant speed, it was crazy.
And the first control deck to get Teferi out, at that point, all of their counter spells were uncounterable, and it was a hot mess. Let me tell you, it reads great and it plays way too good. So for my number 7 here, this is a wonderful card that I've been having tons of fun in Historic with because they put it on Arena. God bless them. Let's bounce things, blink things, enter the battlefield, leave play stuff happen with Soulherder. That's just what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
Me and Cloudblazer hanging out. There's some Muldrifting, of course, for the old school. Soulherder showed up in Jumpstart Historic Horizons, or originally in Modern Horizons, for a blue, a white, and a generic mana. It's a 1/1 uncommon spirit. Whenever a creature is exiled from the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on Soulherder, and at the beginning of your end step, you may exile another target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So you're blinking, you're countering, you're getting all the sweet effects. It's generally small and incremental, but eventually they add up, and then your opponent's dead. Yeet.
I love this card so much.
So much fun.
When I see this in the Arena Cube, all I want to do is draft this deck. Buddies with YORION, which we talked about earlier. Charmed Prince, anything that doubles up on blinking effects. Thassa Deep Dwelling is another great one. This thing just becomes an enormous monster for 3 mana, and you do get almost immediate value out of it. So if you play your 2-drop, be it Charming Prince, be it Faboltha, something along those lines, and then you get Soulherder, it's immediately generating value. And then it's generating value later once you do get your Cloud Blazers or what have you.
Yeah.
This is the kind of Magic I like to play. This sort of fun, tempo-y type deal. It doesn't feel like it's shutting people out like true combo, and it doesn't feel super control-y, but it's giving you this sort of incremental value that allows you to snowball and use your resources. And I think that that's really fun Magic.
Yeah, and there's just a lot of sort of clever ways to trigger it, because it's whenever a creature's exiled from the battlefield. So, even there's these Swords to Plowshares, their guys, it gets a counter. It's really sweet. Cool. Let's move on here to number 6. Reuben, what you got?
So my number 6 was one of the most fun reveals of Kaldheim, and also led to a rule change in Magic the Gathering. The color identity of one side of this perhaps is mono black, but the backside of Valki, God of Lies, turns into Tibalt, Cosmic Imposter, and therefore can make number 6 on my list. Valki, God of Lies is a colorless and a black for a legendary creature god who's a 2/1, who, when he enters the battlefield, each opponent reveals their hand. For each opponent, exile a creature card they revealed in this way until Valki leaves the battlefield, and then you can pay X generic and choose a creature card exiled with Valki with mana value of X, and then Valki can become a copy of that card. Or you can pay 7 much later in the game and get Tibalt the Cosmic Imposter, who's a legendary planeswalker. Tibalt for 7 mana and enters with 5 loyalty. As Tibalt enters the battlefield, you get an emblem you may play cards exiled with Tibalt Cosmic Imposter, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. +2, exile the top card of each player's library. That's effectively draw 2 cards. -3, exile target artifact or creature. And -8, exile all graveyards, add red.
Whew, that's a long card. Does a whole lot. For like a minute, like a serious half minute, they're like, you know what? It's all right to cascade into the 7-drop. And I'm like, are you out of your mind? And it just took over everything. And it felt so silly. You had to say to them, hey, you're not supposed to get 7 mana worth of stuff for 3 mana worth of spell. I'm sorry. That's not the Magic you want to play over and over and over. Not when it's this powerful.
Yeah.
I didn't play a lot of this in Constructed, but I played it not that long ago in Limited. So, limited players, we struggle. Planeswalkers are hard. So I'm just sitting there the entire time trying to puzzle. I have Valki out, but I'm by the time I get him out, it's way too late in the game and I'm behind. But it never dawns on me that the thing I remove can also be played, because his removal is the exile. I'm reading it separately in that I can take the top cards, exile those and play them, or just exile a creature separate and not get to play it. And everybody's just what is she doing? It's so obvious. But this card does so much stuff that like
It's
my
weird.
tiny brain cannot handle it.
It did so much stuff. It changed the rules of Magic.
Yeah.
And that's why it's awesome. Nerd Girl, what's number 6?
All right. So let's go ahead and talk about the second one. Maybe shouldn't have made my list considering I've already talked about Squirrel, but this card is cool and it was super fun in Constructed. Now I know most people hate this archetype, but I happen to like it. So, and it's my top 10. So there.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about Corvold, the Cursed King.
My number 9.
This is a
This was my number 10. Yeah.
Nice.
5-mana Dragon Noble. It's a 4/4 with flying. And this is whenever Corvold enters the battlefield or attacks, sacrifice another permanent. And then whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Corvold and draw a card. Super important when you're sacrificing things. Works insanely well with cat ovens and silly nonsense. And just kind of the top end finisher for only 5 mana and can get out of hand very quickly.
Why was this card added to Arena? I can't remember exactly the hows and the why, because it's not a main set card. It's
right.
like the
this
commander
is a commander
card.
set.
But they added like all 5 of the commanders or all 4 of the commanders to the client.
I think they
Shalane's
did do
in
that
here as well.
eventually. Yeah, Chulane, Alila,
The knight, the legendary
yeah.
knight is in here. I was just
I don't remember.
I think it was just like sort of part of the promotion or whatever during the release. It was like, hey, we added
And then
these
of
as
course they added
commanders.
Kenrith, who was also not in packs.
Right,
Right.
because he was the set buy a
Set-
box
the set
card
buy
at
a
that
box
point.
guy.
Back when you
But yeah, Corvold is great, and Corvold took a minute to catch on, and outside of like Commander,
I think for
Commander
that very
players-
reason. I think, you know what I mean? Like it was added as like a silly, goofy commander thing. And later people were like, wait a damn minute, this card's amazing. And off we went with the cat in the oven.
Yeah, I love sacrificing things, and
And-
so does Nerd Girl. So
Yeah.
it's great.
I mean, this is the sack for value card if you ever needed one. I've played this thing in Historic and it's great. And I've always been like, oh, like I want a Shalane, the Teller of Tales guy, but it's a mythic wild card that it eats up, and I'm only going to use it in Historic Brawl. At least with this one, I could say I can use it in both places. So it helped. Let's see here. Oh, that was your number 6, not your number 7. Yours number 7 was higher. For my number 6 here, this is a card, man. It took the archetype that as it existed on Arena and just shot it into the stratosphere. And it was amazing because it always impresses me when the cards are like literally like 21 years old or so. But when you bring them in to the new modern client, everything changes when Sterling Grove shows up on Arena. Sterling Grove just took the enchantment archetype to the moon with the diamond hands. Sterling Grove is green and generic mana for a uncommon enchantment back in the day. These days it's a rare from Modern Horizons 2. It is a enchantment that says other enchantments you control have Shroud, which means they can't be the target of spells or abilities. And for 1 generic mana, you sacrifice it, search your library for an enchantment card, reveal it, then shuffle and put that card on top. And it's just wonderful. It protects all of your enchantments and enchantment creatures. It goes and tutors the enchantments that you want. Once you have 2 of them out, your enchantments are just absolutely 100% untouchable. And that's amazing.
Really interesting poetic kind of design here, because 1 protects your other enchantments, but not itself. 2 protect themselves. The 3rd and the 4th now can go tutor other things. So it's like, I love cards that are okay and do kind of different things in multiples. This thing had a heyday, and it continues to be good to this day.
It came back.
Yeah. Anytime a card doesn't punish you for drawing multiples, it's a good thing. Well, for you.
Right. And also this card took about 20 years to reprint. I think that it was in Invasion and then didn't get a reprint in paper for 20 years. It was kind of long overdue, but now we're getting it. And recent Masters reprint, I think it's reasonably priced. I would guess it's probably still $5.
It's about $2 or $3, but
even better.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, well, it started getting like really stupid there for a minute when they just wouldn't reprint it. So it took them over 2 decades to get there, but we got there. All right, let's move in here to number 5. Mine is higher on somebody else's list, but that's okay because it's annoying. Reuben, what's
mine is
5?
Also higher on somebody else's list.
I will carry.
All right, let's go.
Okay, so my number 5 is, it deserves its chance to be in the spotlight because it was kind of known as the lesser, the weaker one, but it is not banned, and it's still very playable, both in standard and in eternal formats like historic. And that's going to be Kroxa, Titan of the Death's Hunger. This is a 2-mana black and a red for a legendary creature, Elder Giant, that says whenever Kroxa enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless it escaped. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, each opponent discards a card, and each opponent who didn't discard a non-land card this way loses some life. For black, black, red, red, and exile 5 cards, it can escape and come back as a 6/6. This card is always a 1-for-1. It, kind of needs to be answered. And one of the best things you can do in Arena, or the best feelings you could get, is by playing this on turn 2 against the Hushbringer.
Yeah, this card is
That's
just
pretty good.
bananas. I mean, there's no part that's not absolutely ridiculous. This is like, when I was talking about how Lightning Helix, it's been a set of precedents for, over 15 years or whatever. It's incredible. Like, when they make a card like this that is just like absolutely incredibly powerful and just on the very tip top end of the power level, this thing is a, $20+ mythic anywhere you go. The extended art foil is over $100. Like, this is one of their like magical gems that they have now crafted that they can put in different sets throughout the years, because they've made one of the best Magic cards ever. And that's Kroxa, man.
I do wish that they had printed all of the Titans from the Theros story in paper card form. They've only printed 2 of the 4. Right. So if we ever go back to Theros, they've got those in their back pocket.
And they're going to be just as bananas and silly, and we hope they don't go too far. But Kroxa, I think, was just far enough. Still very, very powerful, but didn't feel like it was completely destroying you. Move on here to number 4. Reuben, what's number 4?
My number 4 is another card that was deemed so powerful that it had to be banned and then made more expensive, which is wild to think about, considering the fact that its mana cost contained 4 different colors. It is banned in Brawl, it's banned in Standard, it is changed in Alchemy, it is Omnath, Locus of Creation. For the low cost of red, green, white, blue, you get a legendary creature elemental that's a 4/4 that when it enters the battlefield, you draw a card. So it automatically replaces itself. But it also has landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life if this is the first time this ability is triggered this turn or resolved this turn. If it's the second time, you add its mana cost, red, green, white, blue. And if it's the third time, Omnath deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control. That is a lot of words. And very often you would play this, then play a Fabled Passage. So you draw a card, you gain 4 life, you get 4 more mana, and now you've just got 5 mana, with a 4/4 in play.
So if you played something and went and got another land, then you would kill something on the opposing side of the board. This card was a problem by the afternoon. Yeah. They released the set, and within 3 hours, I put together this Omnath pile, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And then I went and looked on social media, and it was just Omnath piles for days. All the pros were playing a different Omnath pile, but they were all Omnath piles. And after 2 solid weeks of Omnath piling, they're like, okay, we might have went a little far. Sorry, oops, and changed it. I mean, we got
every once in a while, WotC digs too greedily and too deep with their mana bases. We had Vivid Creek reflecting pool problems. We've had check pile mana bases with Deathrite Shaman. Every once in a while, we need to check ourselves before we wreck our entire format. And that happened with Omnath.
Sometimes I think that they think when designing these sets that the color restrictive cards, 4 colors is a lot. Fixes any problem that might come of a card, because they had a very similar story with Dream Trawler, where it was originally it was 4 white and a blue, and we thought that was too strong, so we made it 2 white, 2 blue, and we thought that would then be so restrictive it would no longer be playable. But that's just never the case. The mana bases, the technology we have to cast our spells is too great for that to be a relevant argument anymore.
They put this 4-color card, this 4-color mythic in the same set as Lotus Cobra.
Yep.
Right.
And are shocked and cannot believe with Fabled Passage and Lotus Cobra, this did not smash everything in half. For those who are curious, the alchemy version of this adds a generic mana to the cost, and you scry 1 when it enters the battlefield.
Instead of drawing
a card, because that is just ridiculous. All right. Nerd Girl, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is my second and only other higher.
Ooh, all right then. Well, I'll talk about my number 4. This card is sweet. And it just does so much. This is a card that I enjoyed so much, and I have a feeling just long term. These days, it's nice and affordable. You should get yourself some copies, in particular, you should get yourself some foils, which I still think are just unbelievably undervalued right now. Because I feel like you want to live the dream. And right now, you can live the dream a few different ways. And before it was, well, I had to ramp up to a whole bunch of mana. And these days, Hanada showed up and was like, you ain't got to do all of that for the Magma Opus. Mm-hmm. Magma Opus showed up in Strixhaven, and I love it. I literally have like 4 foil copies behind me in a binder just hanging out, because I'm telling you, one day it's going to be worth some numbers. Magma Opus is a red, a blue, and 6 generic mana for a mythic instant, and it deals 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of targets. Tap 2 target permanents and create a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token, and you draw 2 cards, but we're not done. For a 2 Izzet mana, that'd be 2 red, blue, hybrid, discard Magma Opus and create a treasure token. So when you're playing with the, what's the blue giant artifact creature that plays it from the graveyard?
Oh, Torrential Gearhulk.
Torrential Gearhulk, thank you very much. You can discard it into their turn when you have 5 lands, and oops, there's a Magma Opus ready to go on your opponent's next upkeep. This thing is just great, coming and going. And again, Hanada from the new set just turned this thing and just went balls crazy.
Yeah, because you can choose 6 targets, right? You can choose 4 damage and then tap 2 lands or whatever.
Exactly. And then you're just paying 2 mana and boop. Your spell is amazing, and you draw 2 cards, and you made a 4/4, and like the world's your oyster.
All right.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go after you.
No. I was going to troll Evan.
Oh, please do. That's takes the most important for sure.
Hey, Evan, can you do me a favor? Can you tell me who illustrated Magma Opus?
What? Come on.
Come on. Just give it a shot.
What? Okay. Liga.
Liiga is the first name.
I would say that it's Liga. Smilskalny.
Yeah. Smilskalny.
Does that sound about right?
That's a tough one. That's a tough name.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that.
That is a rough name to try to pronounce, but you did well. Yeah, this card's great. I think that the fact that it is a signpost rare or mythic, that first of all gives itself its own discard outlet. So you can do things like Mizzix Mastery or Torrential Gearhulk. And that the name is perfect.
The name is perfect.
It's a fun card. It's definitely unlimited. This was your last number 4, right? This is the last 4?
This is
we all did it?
Last number 4, that's right.
Okay. Can I take the lead and jump into 3, please?
Yeah, of course. Let's
because
move on to number 3.
You started your 4 saying that Magma Opus was great, but then very quickly shifted into the fact that Magma Opus is great because Hanada is the thing that makes it great. Right. So my number 3 is Hanada. Drawn Crowned. This is a new card from Kamigawa, and it's a bit of a spec. It's so new. I don't know that it necessarily will, do the thing later in the format 5 years from now. I don't know if this would make my list, but I think it might. And it is a 1 mana, 1 colorless, 1 blue, 1 red, and 1 white. So some Jeskai mana for a legendary. Kieran Spirit is a 4/4 flying trampler, and spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each target. Spells your opponent's cast cost 1 less, 1 more for each target. So this kind of messes with your opponent, enables your spells to do stuff. And I would argue that your Magma Opus would not be on this list if it wasn't for Hanada.
Maybe not as high.
Gearhulk Mizzix Mastery.
Yeah,
I think pretty good.
Right.
But I agree that Hinata just like knocked it into the absolute stratosphere. And I'm just going to say this right now. Right now, justice for Aurelia's Fury. All right? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Justice
We're
for
there
Aurelia's
again.
Fury. We're back. We're coming back. We brought it back to Gate Crash.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
I can't wait. Yeah, Hinata's good. I just feel, I said this during the pre-show and I stand by it. I'm not almost ever impressed by Tower Gargoyles. 3 color mana,
You gotta
4/4 flyers for 4. Like, we've moved past the need for Muroi. We've evolved past Nicol Bolas the Ravager. I don't know. This one, I hope for the best for Hinata and all Kirin spirits, because I think that that's a great combination of creature types also. And I like that this is sort of like a tempered down, pared back Grand Arbiter, Augustin the Fourth, that isn't quite so in your face and angry and aggressive. And it like, if this showed up at your commander table, you wouldn't be like, we have to kill them immediately. Right? Based solely on Hinata.
Right. Your next question would be, do you have Aurelia's Fury?
Right, exactly.
Say, of course I do. It's right here.
What other terrible cards do you have in your deck?
I see how it is. Look, just because I may infamously have went a little bonkers over Aurelia's Fury and thought it was a fantastic card when it turned out to be one of the worst cards in the whole set, a man gets things wrong.
Yeah, well, a lot of people did. They pre-ordered it for like $50 or whatever.
They pre-ordered for like $30-something, and I felt bad. I felt bad. I mean, I like to get excited. I'm sorry.
So this is what happens when you're an influencer, Evan.
Wow.
That's what I did. I did it to myself. Reuben, what's number 3?
Hey, my number 3, we've been talking about the sibling of this card a little bit. We talked about Kroxa, the Titan of Death's Hunger. And I thought that you might like to know the names of the unnamed Titans.
Yeah, let's go.
There is Flage, the Titan of Burning Wind, who's an all-consuming whirlwind of fire, and Skotha, the Titan of Eternal Dark, who is the utter darkness of a starless night. But of course, the headliner, the Michael Jackson of the Jackson 5 of this group is Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath.
Wow.
Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath is generic green, white for a legendary creature, Elder Giant, 6/6 from Theros Beyond Death. When Uro enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless it escaped. Whenever Uro enters the battlefield or attacks, you gain 3 life and draw a card. Then you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. And of course, Uro escaped from the underworld, and you can escape Uro for green, green, blue, blue, and exile 5 other cards from your graveyard to play Uro from your graveyard.
This card is just bananas. This card is absurd. It's silly. It's pushed way too hard. Like, I don't know what the numbers need to be or supposed to be, but 3 life was too much. Drawing a card was too much. Maybe one, maybe the other. I don't know. It's, for those who do have copies, congratulations. As long as it's legal in Commander, it's going to be worth a ton of money. And will always be a consideration in Legacy and Vintage, for God's sake. That's how far they pushed it.
That's crazy. I'm surprised after the bans that it's still going to be worth as much as it is, I think.
And after too much Mexican food, I am the Titan of Burning Wind. I just want you to know that. All right. We got there.
Evan, please.
Fart joke. Yes.
They don't have Mexican food in Florida.
I mean, they try. They call it
Cuban.
that.
They have Cuban food.
They call it that.
Yes,
like, we have really good Cuban food, though. We for real.
Sure.
I would legit miss the Cuban place when we move. Not kidding.
I moved from Southern California to Florida for a year, and I was like, guys, I'm craving some Mexican food. Let's go find something. And they were like, there's a Taco Bell. And I was like, excuse me? I was like, we cannot be friends. Like, this is not a thing.
Yeah. I've tried some places around here.
There's really good Mexican food in Los Angeles, though.
Nice.
That's where I'm from.
Well, there you go. You were spoiled. All right.
I am.
Goodness. For my number 3, this card is, it's, I don't know, a revelation might not be the right way to say it. But it is a damn fine Magic card that has basically taken over its its spot as one of the most powerful spells in the spell-based deck in Historic. It has become an absolute staple in every single deck that runs these two colors. You can't run blue and red right now and not run Expressive Iteration. You got to have the best argument I've not heard yet. Expressive Iteration is a red, a blue for an uncommon sorcery that looks at the top 3 cards of your library. You put one of them into your hand, one of them on the bottom of your library, and exile one of them. You may play the exiled card this turn, which means you better find a land and put it over there in exile. And it's just perfect. It's just like the perfect turn 3 thing to do. And it's been amazing ever since it showed up.
My number 4.
Number 4.
This even won the Mike C's for best card. It doesn't feel overly oppressive, but it really gives the control in the long-term decks. Heck, even is it historic Phoenix decks really, really rely on having this sort of card draw. It's good in aggro, it's good in control. It's just a powerhouse of a card.
Yeah. Being able to not just draw 3 cards, but also get rid of something that you don't necessarily need is a huge deal. It's the perfect turn 3 play, as you mentioned. If you have a land in your hand and you find a bolt or something along those lines, or if you desperately need a land, you can look at the top 3 of your deck and almost certainly find one, which is super necessary in those Phoenix decks that are a little bit land light and need their cantrips to help flush out their mana base.
So it's good early and it's good late, and that's why it's my number 3. All right, let's move on here to number 2. I share my number 2.
Me.
Yay, with a very special person. Tell us all about our super cool card, and I'll read it off.
Our super cool card is annoying.
This is my number 1 pick for every card is someone's favorite card. It might just not be your favorite.
So this is the reason I don't play a lot of Constructed. Not just this card, but the people who play this card make me not want to play Constructed.
Wow.
I'll lead into this with one of the best phrases that was on a charity shirt. It was on a website. It's very, very iconic, and that is, Teferi, you can go tuck yourself.
Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, is a blue and white and 3 generic mana for a mythic planeswalker who showed up in Dominaria. He has 4 starting loyalty and +1 draw a card at the beginning of the next end step. Untap 2 lands. -3, put target non-land permanent into its owner's library, 3rd from the top. And -8, you get an emblem with quote, whenever you draw a card, exile target permanent and opponent controls. This thing is bananas. This thing ran the format when it was in it. It continues to run Historic as we know it. Something has to be the best, and by God, it is Teferi.
Yep, this card is nuts. Someone in our tournament the other day said that they registered 12 Teferis, and I was like, holy smokes. And that tells you how good that these cards are. This is it's been reprinted in
the Mythic Edition,
the Secret
Lair, the list.
Yeah. It's people's favorite card. It's not close, and it's also people's most hated card. Also not close.
Yeah, you play Magic to feel something, and this card definitely makes you feel something. This was my number 5. Nice. It was our choice for artwork of the year for the Black is Magic edition. This also was a Mike C's card of the year when it was in standard, as was Uro, as was Expressive Iteration. A lot of these multicolored cards end up being our cards of the year just because they're so powerful and you build towards them. Yeah. And to this day, people are building towards Teferi. In standard, there was like the Bant Turbo Fog nonsense. Now you have the Jeskai control decks that are taking advantage. Instead of root snaring your opponents, you're lightning helixing your opponents and your opponent's creatures. So, it's kind of everything you'd ever want a 5-mana planeswalker to do. It gives you card advantage. It gets things off the board. And when you ultimate it, it wins you the game.
It secretly costs 3, but it kind of costs 5 at first. Like, until Jace the Mind Sculptor and or Liliana of the Veil, and that's maybe, until they're on the client, this is probably the scariest planeswalker that I do not want to see resolve, like, ever. I'm always just like, oh god, here it comes. Can I deal 5 damage to Teferi, or am I just going to lose? Reuben, what's number 2?
My number 2 is the last higher that is on someone's number 1 of their list.
Wow, right up near the
top. I still have a 9 and a 2 hanging out there.
Wow, that's a range. And Nurgle, your number 7 has yet to be unveiled.
Yep.
All right, well, let's turn the corner here to number 1. All sorts of things are going to be known here. Reuben, what's number 1?
My number 1 has the best abs in Magic. Also is just an absolutely horrendous person. Banned in Pioneer, banned in Modern, banned in Legacy, banned in Historic.
Oh my God.
It's Oko, Thief of Crowns. Oko, Thief of Crowns is a generic, a green and a blue for a legendary planeswalker, Oko, who enters the battlefield with loyalty 4 and has a +2 ability of making a food token. Also has a +1 ability of target artifact or creature loses all abilities and becomes a green elk creature with base power and toughness 3/3 and -5. Exchange control of target artifact or creature you control and target creature and opponent controls with power 3 or less.
This card is just, it was too good. Like, it was so dumb. I remember reading it. I remember the first time I read it. And I read it and I was like, does that completely, literally nullify anything that my opponent just did? Like, literally any Emrakul, and it's nothing. And the food thing was the food thing was a different kind of permanent, so that was kind of weird. No one really knew how to value that. But like, this card is just bananas. But the reason I don't have it on my list is because I can't play it anywhere. You can't play it in anything on Arena other than like a fun friend game or something.
See, I didn't put it on my list because I didn't want to relive the trauma.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted those abs to shine just like everybody else did, but they shone too brightly and they broke everything. Now it's banned and everything.
Yeah.
They banned this thing in Legacy.
It goes up to 6 loyalty for 3 mana.
Oof.
Doesn't matter what the rest of the card really does. That's too good on a planeswalker.
+2 ham sandwich. Like,
Yeah.
gonna get banned. Sorry. Oh my God. Nerd Girl was
Literally a ham sandwich. It's a food token.
It is a food.
Wow.
Wow.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to my number 1. I'm
Yes.
guessing it's going to be someone's higher here because this card is insane. It changes every single format that it comes anywhere close to, and it even had a brief, like, little stint of being banned in Vintage. That's hard to do for a card to be that good, and that's Loris of the Dream Den. We have colorless, and then we have Orzhov hybrid for a legendary creature, Cat Nightmare. Fun. It is a 3/2 companion with lifelink, and during each of your turns, you may cast 1 permanent spell with converted mana cost 2 or less. This is changing every single format that it plays in. It was insane in standard rogues. It's still seeing a ton of historic play with Rakdos and Auras. This card is crazy and cute. I've never noticed until I was doing this top 10 list that I had never noticed the little baby Loris in the background, and I am now just, please, Wizards, make a plush of this. I will give you my money.
Baby Loris.
Baby Loris.
So cute.
I mean,
It's a dream den.
Yeah, this is on all of our lists because it's bananas. It's my number 5. It's Reuben's number 2. This card literally banned in Vintage. They haven't banned the card since like Charizard or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, Luris was banned to his interaction with Black Lotus because, again, back in the day, companions were free, and that was real dumb. And I cannot believe, like, there were just so many, like, between Lutri and Luris, you were like, did you guys really not think that pre-banning 2 different cards in 2 different formats would, like, clue you off to this being a seriously bad mechanic?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, Luris was a problem in the older formats because anything that says mana value 2 or less, that's kind of like a whistle in your mind to be like, legacy, vintage, older stuff.
Red herring, yeah.
And it's definitely very good in those formats. You know, the mono white, mono black decks, Orzhov decks, the food decks of all varieties, much less burn. I mean, people just play this in burn as a value finisher where you can go like play Luris, Goblin Guide you. It goes fine in control decks where you're just not playing a lot of permanents, right? And you just want to cycle like a Soul Guide Lantern and draw a bunch of cards. It's just extremely potent and extremely powerful and gives a long game to a type of deck that often peters out.
Companions might have been the worst design cycle/choice since Epic Spells and Saviors of Kamigawa. Like, it is really, really bad in terms of like how it warped everything around their existence. And now we kind of have to have this like hanging cloud of companions over every format forever, as long as they're in it. And that, hey, would you like a secret 8th card in your opener? You have to pay 3 to get it, but still an 8th card. Yeah. Am I right?
I think Companion's worse. I think Companion is...
Yeah, I think it's worse, but I think it's since that really horrible epic, you can't play spells, you can't play Magic anymore. This changed Magic in a very negative way. So for my number 1, which is Reuben's number 9, if we're doing the thing right here, this is one of my favorite cards. It's a really cool design. And when I was thinking about like top 10 multicolor cards on Arena, I was like, what is more multicolor than all of the colors? And then it looks at all of the color pairs and rewards you for playing all of them. For God's sakes, my number 1 is Niv Mizzet Reborn. Niv Mizzet Reborn is a white, blue, black, red, green. It's a Wooburg. It is a 6/6 mythic legendary dragon avatar from War of the Spark. It has flying. And when it enters the battlefield, you reveal the top 10 cards of your library. Remember the number of you reveal stuff? Well, for each color pair, choose a card that's exactly those colors from among them. Put the chosen cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This card is sweet. It has its own archetype in Historic. It still gets played. It's super duper fun in Commander and Historic Brawl formats. And I just love it. And I couldn't think of anything more multicolory than Niv Mizzet.
This was my number 7.
Nice.
If you're going to have
my number 9,
if you're going to have a dragon lord that everybody loves, he's got to make the list.
Absolutely. And
this card is, I hate playing against this card in Brawl. Because
you
it's
just
like
know it's
they
5 color good stuff.
Because it's the control deck, right?
Yeah.
They 1-for-1 they counter the thing, they Doomblade the thing, and then they draw 6 cards, and you're just like, well, fine, I guess. But they also get a 6/6 flyer out of their drawings, a million cards. It's very annoying. And I mean, it's very good, and it's good enough for constructed play. Because you do the same thing. You play a removal spell, you play a lightning helix, you play a drown in the lock, you play your Kolagon's command, and then you just refill your entire hand with this. Entire decks are built around casting Bring to Light to put this onto the battlefield. Even casting Faceless Agent in Historic, because Dragon is the most played creature type in your deck because it's the only creature type in your deck. You just get another Niv Mizzet.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, it's great. And also Niv Mizzet is number 1, as we know. He's been printed 4 times. Yeah. This is the latest iteration.
I will take all the iterations I can get. And that was our top 10 multicolor cards on Arena. You'll see them on screen right now for your review. Take a look at my list, Nerd Girl's list, Reuben's top 10, and we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about, and we'll select our favorite to win $50 worth of anything at CoolStuffing.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Nerd Girl.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Reuben.
I could do an entire another list with no legendary permanents.
Because you just said basically
all of mine were legendary permanents.
Nice. Well, we go here to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffing.com, our co-sponsors, CardHoarder.com and UltraSleeves.com, my co-host, MTG Nerd Girl and Reuben Bresler. You guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMics. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, do everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv at MagicMics, on Twitter at MagicMicsCast, our Magic Mics subreddit, and like the Magic Mics page on Facebook. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.